My man Brandon Gill never disappoints. From Texas, finally taking aim at the funding for these non-government organizations, NGOs. They call them that because technically they are non-governmental organizations, but a whopping ton of them get a ton of money from, as we saw in recent crackdowns on grants, the government. And they can't sustain themselves or their operations without government funding, which I think kind of technically makes them government agencies. And Scott Bessent laid out the new criteria for those groups.
The IRS is now giving guidance on the Form 990, which nonprofits they have to file. And we are going to encourage or demand that nonprofits know their grant recipients. So if a grant recipient is violent, if they are suppressing people's rights, then you are responsible for that.
Folks, you know I have been yelling about this since I was in the administration under Trump 1. I was in charge of CNCS, the Corporation for National Community Service, which was a major granting arm of the federal government to these nonprofits. I remember as part of my onboarding there, I wanted to go around and see some of these nonprofits and visit with the ones that were getting like millions. And I mean, we were spending like $1 billion a year out the door just giving them to these 501c3s. This was in 2018. And it took me a few weeks to realize that I was, carefully being directed to only go look at certain ones, and other ones were being hidden from me. Why? Well, because they were getting millions of dollars to give aid and provide legal defense to illegal immigrants, which Donald Trump expressly did not want to happen. I found them, I shut down a lot of those grants, and all hell broke loose. And Brandon Gill has picked up this torch, saying this: you do not have the right to run an organization that takes tax dollars that engages in illegal activity or engages in domestic unrest or engages in oftentimes political activity, whether it's nonprofits or other sorts of entities that are taking government money. Weird. Let me explain how this works, and maybe at least some rational people left on the left will understand why I am so against illegal immigration. The government, they confiscate your money at gunpoint under the penalty of prison. We call this taxation, for which you have no option and you must fork over your money. They take a bunch of this money and then they grant it back out, like I was telling you, to these non-government organizations. Now, keep in mind, the government has certain restrictions on what they can spend their money on and how it can be spent. But if they give it to one of these NGOs, there's basically zero accountability once it leaves the government's coffers. That private nonprofit, that, by the way, is not paying taxes because their organization is tax exempt, just does whatever they want with this stuff. And as I already explained, a lot of those NGOs are aiding illegal immigrants. Those NGOs are helping those illegals apply for government programs, maybe some housing subsidies or some welfare programs that they say doesn't happen, but it always happens. They're helping illegals basically consume more of our tax revenue. They're also replacing low-skilled labor that would normally go to entry-level American jobs, at which point they often send a lot of the money they make back to their home country. So it's not even being spent in our economy. And if you remember, we've showed you this before, foreign-born workers are outpacing American-born workers in our job force. They account for more than half of the U.S. labor force growth. Think about that. But those NGOs are also giving it away to these stupid protests. They're paying for buses and hotels and salaries even for people to go out and throw stuff and scream at ICE agents to give the perception that the country is mad about enforcing immigration laws, which we're not at large. So just to recap, you pay taxes to the government that gives it to unaccountable liberal-run organizations that give it to illegals and anti-ICE protesters who take tons of welfare and housing benefits and then replace our labor workforce, and then they send a lot of that money back to their home countries, not to benefit America in any way, shape, or form.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.